Hello and welcome to SusyBLiving's Gardening by the Moon series. It's Wednesday the 22nd of May and it is absolutely bucketing down outside. Mind you, I'm not complaining because the garden and the allotment does need a lot of water and I need to fill up my water butts. So all is good. I hope you're all well. I hope you're gardening by the moon and I hope you're having great successes. So let's continue with the rest of the week then, and I will tell you what I am getting up to. So let's have a look here. Where are we here? I've got my wrong page. There we are. Thursday the 23rd and Friday the 24th of May are both leaves days on the moon phase calendar. So I am going to do a little bit of sowing. I am going to sow my winter Savoy cabbages. I didn't get to sow them last time. I only did the red cabbages. And they are a variety called Virtus. They are really hardy. I'm just wondering whether I've got them in my pocket actually. Well, I mean, you know what a Savoy cabbage looks like, don't you? They're very, very hardy. They stand in the ground really well and they are good if we get frosts or even snow. So that is a variety I like to sow in the winter. I'm not going to do many of them. I'm only going to do 4 or 5 of them, but it's just enough because my other ones, the summer and the autumn ones, will be in the ground anyhow. So that's fine. I'm also going to sow a few more lettuce. I usually sow lettuce every month. You'll get the gist of my lettuce sowing. I don't sow many. Again, I only sow about 4 or 5, or that is what I'm going to keep. So when I do sow, I sow a few more, and then if I don't want them, I just snip them off at soil level and you know, it's always good to have a few extras and a few spares. I'm always talking about spares to people. So please, if you are sowing, sow a few extra things because you never know when something is going to get eaten in the garden or on the allotment or whether a disease is going to get it. And if you've got spares just hanging around, then they can go in the place of whatever you had in the garden or on the allotment. So I am doing my favorites for this time of year. They are the Riccia, they are Canasta, they are Haflex, Excavo and Navara. So all of those are my very, very favorite summer lettuce, and these, remember, are head lettuce. So you can also put in cut and come lettuce. I sowed a veggie pod with cut and come lettuce. It hasn't been that successful, and I think it's because of where it's situated, because it is actually situated underneath a big acer. So the sunlight, it doesn't get a great deal of sun, especially in the afternoon. It kind of gets it at, you know, midday, and then it doesn't get a lot of sun, but they'll come. It's quite sporadic as to what's in there, but cut and come is always good to put in pots and troughs and anywhere. You know, even if you've got a little balcony, you can grow cut and come lettuce. So that's my sowing. The other thing I'm going to sow is I'm going to sow my Swiss chard. I held off. I was going to sow it earlier in the month and then I held off. So I'm going to be doing some rhubarb Swiss chard. I'm going to be doing some of the really big Ford hook giant Swiss chard, and then I'm going to do a mix as well, just a little bit of rainbow, and then of course I'm going to do my favorite, which is called Barese, the Italian variety. That's going in as well. The reason why I held off is I have a lot of leaves at the moment to eat. I've got lettuce, I've got kale, I've got cabbage, I've still got Swiss chard that I harvested last week. If you watch my vlog, I'm including now in my vlog my weekly harvest, and you'll see how many leaves and how green it is for us this time of year. So it's not as important for me to have the chard. The other thing I'm going to also do, whenever I sow chard, I also sow perpetual spinach. So that is going to go in as well because I've just finished harvesting that as well. So let's talk about transplanting. Transplanting, it's a continual, is it a chore? I don't know. Yeah, a little bit for me. I don't really enjoy transplanting as much. I like transplanting out into the ground. But the potting on business is a little bit of a chore for me. But I find that it is so important because you first get a really good root ball on things. I'm just looking at all my kind of transplanting here that I've got. I mean, I've got melons, I've got little tomatoes, I've got all sorts of things. Once they fill this kind of size pot, which is a 9-10 centimeter pot, once they fill that, they're on their way and they're growing really well. I find that anything a little bit smaller and they just struggle, especially if you put them direct into the ground. So transplanting kales, cabbage, I've got lettuce, I've got herbs to transplant, I've got spring onions as well, I've got some spinach, I've got Brussels sprouts, I've got a lot. And that is either potting on or putting into the garden. So I've got a lot going on. Weeding and maintenance, I have lettuce everywhere. I have to check my lettuce regularly because they are full of snails and slugs. It's always difficult because you never know what, I'm just looking in here, all my lettuce has sprouted again in here and they have to come out because I need to use these pots for my tomatoes. Yeah, with a lettuce, it's always difficult because even if you're really vigilant with the slug patrol, they will always be in the center of the lettuce. And when I pick a lettuce and then I wash it, I just go through it and I take all the kind of manky leaves off and, you know, and just, well, you can't do much about, especially this year with all the rain that we've had. Yeah, lettuce. I've got kales I want to have a look at over the allotment. I've got a few extras to go in some spots that I harvested. Cabbage, I've got my pointy red cabbage on the allotment. The last time I looked, they were doing really well. I was very happy with those. And all my spring onions as well. So a little tip for you. When you are planting spring onions out at this time of year, and you have a bed, you're putting them in a bed, try and plant them around the edge of the bed. I do it with spring onions, I do it with beetroot, I also do it with leeks as well, and sometimes I do it with onions. So I plant around the edge of the bed so that the center is actually free for something else. Because of these, because spring onions stay in the ground a long time, and onions and leeks and beetroot, if you dedicate a whole bed to them, then you've lost the bed. The bed's gone. So I always, this time of year, do them around the edge. It's different when we kind of go in from autumn to winter because I don't have other things going on. I say that, but I've always got a brassica or 25 in the garden. So that's just a little tip. Otherwise, you will find that you can't plant anything else in the bed. I did some interplanting the other day of my parsnips, and I sowed out some parsnips and I interplanted them with shallots in between as well, because again, parsnips are another thing that are going to sit in that bed for a very long time. And so to try and work out how can I use this bed more productively, I always put a shallow rooting plant in with a deep rooting plant. So a shallot is a shallow rooting plant and a parsnip is a deep rooting plant. I've done exactly the same with my carrots outside as well. So I do a row of carrots, a row of spring onions, row of carrots, row of spring onions. I don't do it to deter the, carrot fly, because carrot fly will come no matter what. It's just so that I'm interplanting, so I'm making more of the bed rather than sticking something in and thinking, oh, well, that's it for that. The only thing that I won't do that are big plants, like for things like cauliflowers or calabres. They have a dedicated bed to themselves, because I usually find that the shade that they produce, anything underneath, doesn't really work. Some people put in lettuces, but for me, I found that it doesn't really work. Okay, so that is it. Feeding. Okay, so now I kind of start feeding as and when. So when I see that something in the garden is looking a little bit bedraggled, I'll give it a feed. Okay, so that's Thursday, Friday. Saturday the 25th and Sunday the 26th of May are both fruits days. We're back to fruits again. So I am going to be sowing my runner beans. I'm not going to sow many because I'm not a big runner bean lover, but I do kind of like to have them, you know, for certain things, certain recipes. So yes, runner beans. I'm also going to be doing another batch of the purple climbing because I just haven't filled the frame over at the allotment, the A frame with my climbing beans. And I'm going to do another batch each of the purple the amethyst purple one and the green sprite, which are the dwarf beans as well, because we can never have enough beans. So, and these are all French beans, these ones. That's my sowing. So transplanting, you know, a lot of the year we don't, fruit stays are quite sparse, but when you come to this time of the year, fruit stays take over. So transplanting, what have I got to transplant? I'm transplanting out chilies, peppers, tomatoes. I've got some tomatoes in here in pots that I let it get a bit leggy, but they'll be fine. Aubergines, cucumbers, melons, my beans have, and I've got another lot of beans to go out, squash, courgettes, and it just continues and continues and continues, the list. Yes. Weeding and maintenance. So let's think about what we've got in the ground. Broad beans on the allotment. The broad beans here in the pots are still going strong. They're doing really well. My peas, so I'm eating the Monge 2, the sugar, Oregon sugar pod peas, and the sugar snaps are nearly ready as well. I've got another lot of peas ready to go out into the garden at the back of the bed. I found that has worked really well for me. Broad beans, peas. Oh, my French beans, I've got to go and check them over the allotment, make sure that slugs aren't eating those as well. Anything that's in here. So, you know, again, tomatoes, I've got some cucumbers here. I might take some cucumbers over to the allotment. I'll see how they are, whether they're big enough or not, but we'll see how they go. And again, feeding, I use my chili focus for my chilies and my peppers. I think they might have even sent me a tomato food, so that's going to be really good as well. I just need to give these tomatoes a little bit of a helping hand. Yes, and that is it. I did receive my first lot of grafted tomatoes that I'm going to put in here, which are my eating tomatoes. And I've just written to the company because they were terrible. They sent them out. I think they've been traveling for about 3 or 4 days. And okay, partly part of the fault is the courier, because one of the tomatoes was completely snapped. But the quality of them is shocking. So I've just written to them. I'm waiting for them to get back to me, which is very disappointing. So that's that. That's your week. That then takes us to Sunday, the 26th of May. So that's exciting. Gosh, we're nearly at the end of May. Did you go to Chelsea this year? That's one thing that you may have done, because Chelsea is going on at the moment. I didn't. I don't particularly like Chelsea. I find it too many people, really. I like to go where there's a little bit more space. So no, I didn't go to Chelsea, obviously. I'm on the allotment. And that's about it. Okay, so I'm Susie B from SusyBLiving. It'd be nice if you give me a thumbs up and let me know if you're moon gardening with me and what's going on, what's growing, what's germinating. It's always nice to hear people giving comments as well. And don't forget to subscribe, because if you hit that subscribe button and you subscribe, then you will get my regular updates, and it just takes the pressure off of what you can do and what, you know, so you don't get overwhelmed. I found it's quite interesting, because I do find on social media that a lot of gardeners are starting to lose their mojo at the end of May, which is, yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why people do. I think it's because there's so many little things, you know, there's all these seed things, there's all these small pots, there's all this kind of stuff, and nothing is really kind of really planted out properly yet. And I think that's probably it. And people get a little bit kind of overwhelmed with everything. But I just keep going. I mean, you know, For me, all of this is so much fun. I absolutely love it. It is my passion. And whether I get stuff out or whether I don't care. It all gets done in the end. So there you go. That's my gardening motto. Don't care. Okay, I'll see you again. Bye.